Hello, and thank you so much for joining me for this WNCT Now digital news update. I'm Emily Severage, live in the WNCT digital studio. Let's get right into some top and trending stories, local and nationwide. Onslow County Sheriffs are searching for a suspect of an early morning shooting that killed one man. Officials say the suspect is Eduardo Samuel Bamaca Domingo, age 37, of Jacksonville. He's listed as a Hispanic male, 5'5", 150 pounds, brown eyes, and black hair. Reports suggest that Bamaca Domingo broke into the house of his ex-girlfriend in the early hours of the morning, where he was confronted by the man he shot. He's believed to have left the area in a gray or silver Mazda 3 four-door vehicle with NC license plate TAW 6135. Bamaca Domingo is charged with an open count of murder and is considered armed and dangerous. Now, on your sides, Kayla Schmidt spoke with local authorities about the ongoing investigation. More on that developing story coming up on your news at 5 and 6. The former Minneapolis police officer who fatally shot 20-year-old black male is being charged with second-degree manslaughter. Kim Porter announced her resignation from the Brooklyn Center Police Department, where she had served 26 years. Her police chief also announced his resignation. Potter is charged with shooting 20-year-old Dante Wright during a traffic stop for having expired tags. Potter's body cam footage was released showing the officer shouted at Wright that she was going to tase him before firing a single shot from her handgun. Her former police chief says he believes Potter mistakenly grabbed her gun while going for her taser. Potter could face up to 10 years in prison. Coming up after the break, some risky driving trends in North Carolina on your news at 5:30, and some vaccine gender disparities in North Carolina.
Can happen day or night. When the weather changes, and it can be abrupt, we want to be that reliable team that says
we work together to make sure that everyone gets the best, most up-to-date, accurate forecast that we all can possibly give them.
We're not looking to cry wolf here. We're looking to inform. We're looking to keep people safe and in a relaxed, calm manner.
I think it's very important that we keep a message that doesn't frighten, it informs.
Storm Team 9, keeping you safe in severe weather.
Just a reminder for you guys, today is a weather alert day. Of course, the weather is looking nice and sunny and dry and warm right now, but we do have a weather alert day in effect for some possible thunderstorm severe weather tonight heading into tomorrow morning. So be sure to download that free Storm Team 9 weather app so we can keep you updated on all the weather going on in your area to keep you safe and informed. Thanks so much for joining me. If you're just tuning in, I'm Emily Severage, live in the WNCT digital studio, bringing you some evening updates. WNCT brings you live streamed updates every Monday through Friday at 1:30 p.m. and 4 o'clock p.m. to bring you the latest and up-to-date news before our nightly newscasts. Coming up tonight on On Your Side News at 5:30, a recent study from AAA in North Carolina shows people who use both alcohol and marijuana could be some of the most dangerous drivers on the road. Experts say they are significantly more likely to speed, text, intentionally run red lights, and drive aggressively than those who don't. As COVID restrictions ease up and more people are out on North Carolina roads, dangerous driving incidents are rising. Not on your side, Victoria Holmes speaks with a state trooper who says they're seeing more violations of basic traffic laws like wearing a seatbelt and speeding. You can see Victoria's full story and that study. That's going to be on WNCT.com under the Features tab on the Online Originals page. In some national news, this year will mark 20 years since the 9/11 attacks in the United States. President Biden has chosen that date this year to withdraw all American troops from Afghanistan. That decision has been met with some mixed reactions from lawmakers. Our DC correspondent Joe Khalil has more on this story.
After nearly 20 years of war, an estimated $2 trillion and more than 2,300 American lives lost, President Biden is expected to withdraw all American troops from Afghanistan before September 11th. the 20th anniversary of the attack on the nation that spurred America's war on terror.
The president has been consistent in his view that there's not a military solution to Afghanistan, that we have been there for far too long.
White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki says President Biden will remain committed to peacekeeping negotiations between all parties in Afghanistan, namely the Afghan government and the Taliban.
He also believes we need to focus our resources on fighting the threats we face today, 20 years, almost 20 years after the war began.
But the announcement comes on the same day the administration's own Director of National Intelligence released the annual threat assessment concluding direct and indirect threats to Americans from within the country still exist, and that the Taliban continues to make gains on the battlefield, adding, quote, the Afghan government will struggle to hold the Taliban at bay if the coalition, meaning American troops, withdraws. At its peak level in 2011, 98,000 American troops were deployed in Afghanistan. Today, just 2,500 troops remain. Former President Trump set a deadline of May 1st for withdrawal, which many Republicans opposed. Today, GOP leader Mitch McConnell blasted President Biden's decision.
It is a retreat in the face of an enemy that has not yet been vanquished, an abdication of American leadership.
Members of Congress on both sides worry that withdrawing too soon may allow groups like al-Qaeda to increase its presence in Afghanistan and regain strength. There are some Republicans, however, who say withdrawing is the right move.
I'm glad to see us moving out. I've got a daughter who was an infant when that war started. She's now halfway through college. I want to see us get out of there, and a timely withdrawal seems like a good thing to me.
Many Democrats support the president's decision, saying after 20 years, it's the best option in what has increasingly become a no-win situation.
No longer have a permanent footprint. It's just a strategic decision about how best to fight terrorism, and I think it's the right one.
Now, an interesting story out of Raleigh. Studies show there could be a gender gap when it comes to who's getting COVID vaccines. CBS digital reporter Jody McCreary from our sister station in Raleigh digs a little deeper and finds out there are more shots going to women than to men.
Here in North Carolina, almost 60% of fully vaccinated people are women. Just over 40% are men. The same thing happening across the U.S. In every state that tracks vaccinations by gender, more shots are going to women.
I think that what you're seeing so far has really just been a matter of opportunity.
RTI International Dr. Bridget Kelly says women are more likely to use preventive care. Because they live longer than men, more were in the 65 and over age group that was eligible earlier. And more women work in healthcare and education. Also groups near the front of the line.
They may just be out ahead of it a little bit more than men are.
And here in North Carolina, the gap appears to be closing. The split was nearly 70-30 1 week in January, but moving closer to even last week.
We're hopeful that in North Carolina and other states where we still see large gaps between women and men, we will begin to see that gap narrowing.
Those numbers run counter to a study published today by RTI. Their survey of 2,300 people showed men slightly more likely than women to say they'd get the vaccine. But that survey was done last April.
Maybe just that men perceive themselves as at higher risk at that time.
Going forward, how will concerns about the Johnson & Johnson vaccine affect hesitancy?
What's important is that people focus on the facts and the data.
My Story at CBS17.com has a link to that study and a breakdown of how much wider the gender gap is in other states. For CBS 17 News, I'm Jody McCrary.
Well, that is going to wrap up this WNCT Now Evening News Update. Of course, we have more news coming up for you tonight on our broadcast at 5, 6, 10, and 11. So be sure and stay tuned for that, for more top and trending stories locally and nationwide. And of course, also continue to check out our online originals page each day, sort of towards the end of the night after our newscast, to find more in-depth stories locally that we're covering here at WNCT. Again, that's the online originals page under the Features tab. Thanks so much for watching. Have a wonderful Wednesday.